Today I want to explore a question. Is listening and reading method a complete package for learning a new language? Now, I've done a video on the LR method before based on a speech that I gave at the Polyglot conference in Bratislava, and I'll put a link to that video up. But today I wanted to talk about using LR as a complete language learning method, and if this is even possible. I'll go through the LR method briefly. If you want more details, watch the other video, but I'll recap the stages here. But the LR technique is also known as L2R1, L2R2, or L1, L2, L2. But LR is easier. It's basically a method that combines listening and reading activities to improve language skills. Now, the idea behind this technique is to enhance comprehension and familiarize the learner with the target language sound patterns, vocabulary, and sentence structure. So, here's a quick breakdown of the LR method and how it's typically practiced. Stage 1, listening in L1, or your native language, and reading in L2, or the target language. Now, in this initial stage, the learners listen to the audio recording of the book or text in your native speech. And simultaneously, you follow along with the written text of the same book in the target language. And then stage 2 is listening and reading in L2. So once you're comfortable with the stage 1, and you may have to repeat stage 1 repeatedly, once you're comfortable with stage 1, you progress on to the stage 2, and in stage 2, you listen to the audio recording of the book or text in the target language, L2, whilst reading the corresponding L2 text. So the LR method allows learners to connect the spoken language to its written form and internalize the natural rhythm, the intonation, and the pronunciation of the target language. And by engaging both the auditory and visual senses, learners reinforce their language comprehension skills and generally improve overall proficiency. Now let's look at these stages in a bit more detail. Stage 1, you're listening in your native language and you're reading in your target language. Now the purpose of this, the primary goal of this stage, is to provide the learner with a familiar context and comprehension of the content in their native language while simultaneously exposing them to the written form of the language. So again, the process: select an audio recording of a book in your native language, obtain the corresponding written text in the target language, listen to the audio while you're reading the target language, and focus on understanding the content and connecting to the written form. Now, the benefits of stage 1 are familiarity. Listening to your native language lets you understand the meaning and the context of the content. It gives you vocabulary acquisition because reading in the target helps you associate words and phrases with their meaning that you're getting from your native language. And sentence structure. So by observing the target language sentence structure in its written form, you become more familiar with the grammar and the syntax of the language. Now, stage 2, this is where you're listening and reading in your target language. Now, the main objective of this stage is to transition from relying on your native language to immersing yourself fully in the target language, both its spoken and written forms. So you choose an audio recording. So the process here is choose an audio recording of the book or text in the target language. Get the written text in the same target language, and then listen to the audio and read the corresponding target language text, and strive to comprehend the content directly in L2 without relying on the translation. Now, you will have done this repeatedly, so you would be familiar with the content here. Now, the benefits of stage 2 are listening comprehension, because listening to the target language audio, you enhance your ability to understand the spoken language, include the pronunciation, intonation, and the natural speech patterns. Your reading comprehension increases because you're simultaneously reading the target language, which reinforces your reading skills and helps you connect the written words to their spoken form. And you are familiar with this already because this is, something you've repeated before. Vocabulary consolidation, because you're exposing yourself to the target language through listening, and your reading simultaneously reinforces the vocabulary acquisition and retention. And fluency development, because regular practice of listening and reading in the target language helps you improve your overall fluency and naturalness of expression. Now remember, the LR technique is a tool to supplement your language journey and should be combined with other activities, speaking and writing, and to interact with native speakers for a well-rounded set in the target language. So, how can we use LR to be a complete learning package? Well, you can do some additional stuff while you're doing LR. You can highlight vocabulary and underlining. So when you come across unfamiliar words or phrases or interesting words or phrases, you can highlight them. Afterwards, you can list these words, put them into flashcards, look up their meaning. And this will all help you expand your vocabulary and reinforce word recognition. You can take notes, create a vocabulary notebook, or use a digital tool to jot down the new words and their definitions and example sentences, and then just review this periodically. Sentence or phrase repetition. So while you're listening to the audio, you can repeat the phrases out loud to practice your pronunciation and intonation. This will help you with your spoken fluency. You can do shadowing, which involves listening to the audio and simultaneously repeating what you hear and try and match the speaker's rhythm and intonation. And it's a good technique for improving pronunciation and rhythm and overall speaking skills. And do summations. So after completing a section or a chapter, try summarizing the content either orally or in writing. And this will help reinforce comprehension and encourages you to express ideas and key points in your target language. And then discussion or writing prompts. So you can use the content you've read and listened to as a basis for further practice. You can engage in discussion with language partners, join language learning forums, write essays. All these activities promote active use and production and reinforce your understanding. And then grammar analysis. You can pay attention to the sentence structure, verb forms, grammatical patterns in the text that you're using for LR, and then analyze that and how the language is used in context and compare it to grammar rules in your grammar book. And this will help reinforce the grammar concept, improve your understanding of the language. And as you advance, gradually increase the difficulty of the LR material and periodically revisit the studied materials before to reinforce what you already know. So remember, the key here is to actively engage with the material and incorporate a variety of activities to help you with your learning and your goals. And you can adapt the LR technique to make it more effective. So if you have a couple of books and the corresponding audiobooks, you can still create a comprehensive system using LR with other activities. So a suggested framework would be establish a routine, set aside a dedicated study time each day or week to do your language learning, and consistency is the key. I recommend doing every day for at least a half an hour or an hour. The LR technique, follow all the stages. In fact, the preliminary stage is to read the book in your native language so that you actually know what the book's about before you start the LR. Use audiobooks and the corresponding text, and then focus on the comprehension and vocabulary. Vocabulary building, as we said before, a notebook or a tool to review new words or put them into flashcards or do quizzes. Do some grammar study, analyze the patterns and the sentence structures, and supplement it with maybe a grammar reference book or online sources. And then additional resources, such as language learning websites and podcasts and YouTube channels, etc., etc. And just expose yourself to authentic material. Now, finally, you need to do regular assessments and reviews and see how you're getting on and where you're problems are, and then try and test your comprehension and your vocabulary and your grammar knowledge via quizzes or exercise, and just identify where you need to improve and adjust your approach so that you can cover those areas. Now, books and audio provide a valuable foundation, but you should try and incorporate other activities, so opportunities for immersion with native speakers or cultural experiences, etc. The one thing you need for LR to make it a complete package is practicing output. So how do you go about doing output practice when you've only got a couple books and you're doing the LR? Well, there are several ways you can practice output, but speaking and writing are the main things, and using the books for the LR method, you can break down some activities to help you here. So for speaking practice, as we said earlier, you can do shadowing, so you listen to the audio book and you simultaneously repeat what you hear, imitating the pronunciation and the intonation and the rhythm of the native speaker. So this will help with your spoken fluency and accuracy. And you can do dialogue practice. So identify the dialogues or conversational passages in the books, assuming that they're fiction. Select a character role and read their lines aloud and imagine yourself engaged in this conversation. This allows you to practice dialogue and speaking in context. You can do role playing, so you act out the scenes from the book with a language partner or just by yourself, and take on the different character roles and engage in the conversation. Try replicating the dialogue and practicing speaking in various situations. You can do monologues, so you choose the topic or a chapter from the book and speak about it for a few minutes and challenge yourself to express your thoughts coherently and fluently in the target language about this topic or section. And obviously you can find language exchange partners. This is my favorite thing to do, and join conversations, and you can have discussions, and you can share your thoughts about the book, and you can ask for feedback, and otherwise engage in a sort of a meaningful conversation. Now for writing practice, you can do summaries. So at the end of each section or the chapter, you write a summary of what you've just read or listened to in the target language, and focus on capturing the main ideas and the key points. And all of this is done in the target language. And then you can do reflections or reviews. So your thoughts and opinions on the books, write a book review about it, do a critical analysis, do a personal reflection on the themes and the characters or the plot. This allows you to practice expressing your ideas and utilize the vocabulary and the grammar that you're learning in the LR process as you go. And then you can do creative writing or fan fiction. So basically use the book as an inspiration for creative writing exercises and write short stories, alternative endings, write up character backgrounds related, to the characters in the book. And this sort of encourages the creativity, but it expands on your vocabulary and your writing abilities. You can also do this orally, but obviously this is fan fiction is primarily a creative writing activity. And then you can try to do journaling. So you maintain a language journal where you write in the target language, reflect on what you're learning, describe your experiences, discuss the topics in the book. And so this also helps with the fluency and writing skills. While using books and LR is really valuable, it's really beneficial to seek additional resources in the form of language learning sites, online forums, apps, for writing prompts or speaking exercises, quizzes, grammar, etc. Embrace any opportunity for language exchanges or native speakers to practice with. And the key is to engage in output activities and regularly challenge yourself to improve your speaking and your writing skills. Now, finding resources for some languages can be difficult, if not impossible. I once attempted to learn Setswana, but basically I had to give up because there just wasn't enough resources available where I live, and there's no native speakers that I could get a contact with. So you may encounter this problem with the LR method. But the LR method will be helpful because you really only need a minimum amount of resources. You could do this with one book with an audiobook. You can also there are some apps that will read a book to you in the language in which it's written. It's a computerized voice, so it's not as good as having a native speaker reading it. But sometimes you have to do what you can. But generally, I think you can convert the LR method into a comprehensive learning package, but you have to do quite a bit of work to do that. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and I want to give a shout out to Matthew Picmal, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, for suggesting the video. And if you're interested in skating or scooters, you should probably check out his channel. Thank you very much for listening and watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon.